Hi, and welcome back to the Doghouse podcast. My name is Austin. I'm the host today, joined by Jimbo and Connor. Unfortunately, today we are missing JJ. He says he will return once the Arizona Coyotes have won a hockey game, so he should be back in 2024. As a fan of the Buffalo Sabres, a reformed Doghouse team on the playoff hunt, today we're talking about the bad dogs who might be put in the doghouse. Connor, you want to start us off? Tell us a little bit what teams you've been having an eye on who've kind of been underperforming this season.
So, just to look at the few bad teams we have for the bad starts, we have the Chicago Blackhawks. That shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. The Vegas Golden Knights, which is a major surprise to a lot of people. We have the Seattle Kraken, which is, I guess, also a bit of surprise. And then another big surprise in the Montreal Canadiens, coming off a fresh Stanley Cup appearance. And then the not so surprising Arizona Coyotes. So those are the five teams we'll kind of examine today in today's podcast. I'd like to start off, gentlemen, with the Chicago Blackhawks, though. So Chicago came into the season looking to really push. They kind of had that mentality of going, all right, this year we're contending. They went out, they got Fleury, they traded away prospects and picks to get Seth Jones. But after a 1-7-2 record to start the season, what went wrong? Jimbo, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think you kind of touched things off there a little bit. They traded away a lot of pieces. And I think we talked about this in our episode, in episode 7, that they're almost like acting like they're kind of out of their rebuilding phase, and contenders again. And they went ahead and they got Seth Jones. They locked him up to a ridiculous contract for 8 years, way too much money, and they gave away way too many pieces for it. And um, obviously they got Fleury, and he cost them nothing, which admittedly is not a bad deal. It's not a bad thing to get him for the top prospect of future considerations. But yeah, like they went into the season, like you said, and they've won one game so far, right? As of November 3rd.
Yes, as of November 3rd, they've only won one
Yeah,
game, and they've only lost two in overtime.
yeah, and I think what it comes down to, like you said, they traded away too many pieces a bit too early before they had to, and what they're left with is a team where their best players are getting a bit older still. Kane and Taze are still good players, but I know they've been out for a little while. Taze is coming back from a season that he wasn't even playing last season, and so he's taken him a little while to get back up to speed. I think he just recently got his first real good game of the year when he got those 3 points a couple of days ago, and Patrick Kane was out. He was on COVID protocol, and there were some issues there. So admittedly, they didn't have the best players, but again, you look at the lineup, and is that a team that seems fit to go deep in the Stanley Cup playoffs? I'd argue no. I don't think so. Austin, what would you think?
I mean, I'm going to address the elephant in the room. There's a lot going on with Chicago on the off ice side. We all know by now about the Kyle Beach situation and all the allegations. We're not going to get into it fully today. There's just so much going on legally, and we just haven't done our full due diligence to do it properly. There's great sources out there. Rick Westhead's a great one to follow. But, when you have this huge situation going on, it's impossible to ignore on the ice. Hockey fans always talk about like the little things in the dressing room affect the team. Well, this is a huge thing. You got players around the league saying they've lost faith in the NHLPA because of the situation. How does that weigh on the two leaders of the team who were there during it, right? So you have all these guys who aren't performing like how they're supposed to. You have this huge black cloud that's just hanging over Chicago. And, like Jimbo's saying, they got all these new guys. It's hard to meld, and the coach doesn't have the room. So you got all these issues, and you've lost the fans immediately. I think opening night they booed the coach right when he was announced. So they didn't like him from last year. Like there's so much going against the tide in Chicago, and it's just kind of hard to right the ship right now.
And wasn't it like cheaper to buy a game to the Blackhawks home game than it was to buy like a bottle of water from the Seattle Kraken arena?
Yep.
Yeah, $10 for a Chicago game, $10 for a bottle of water, and that's nuts. Chicago hasn't seen prices that low since like 2007 when they were garbage. Like Chicago has always been able to sell, even the past couple of years when they were like retooling, they were still able to sell tickets.
Well, that's because
Like
Kane and
it's
Taves could bring in anyone, and they still can bring in a lot of fans. It's just like everything with the Kyle Beats situation. I think a lot of people are questioning Kane and Taves' role in that situation.
Yeah, no, it's been publicly, especially because Taves was the NHLPA representative. So it's been publicly talked about. Like Antoine Roussel even made a comment on that, and he's an active player. That never happens. So people aren't buying the tickets for them. What are they buying the tickets for, right? And it's just this sense of like, what's the direction? You sign Seth Jones, you trade for Tyler Johnson, you trade for the Vezina winner, and then you have Stan Bowman coming out before he got let go, saying that no, we're still in a rebuild. This doesn't change anything. After they traded their first round pick, so like, what's the plan there? They don't have a
You,
sense of direction.
you know who I feel the worst for? I feel really bad, obviously, for Marc-Andre Fleury. I mean, he comes off, such an incredible time. He's such a significant figure there in Vegas ever since they started. He really was the heart of the team. Gets traded away, blindsided, to this team, and then all of a sudden this situation blows up. And the team he's on, like, he's getting older. Getting pretty close to the end of his career here, likely. So is that a way you want to go out? I don't think so. Not
And it's
someone
like
like Marc-Andre Fleury.
it's night and day difference. Like there's that crazy stat where he faced more high pressure or high danger chances
Yeah,
in his first Chicago game than the entire year with Vegas.
and that just shows you
Right.
to like what good defense does. And like, sadly, Vegas has way better. Well, not sadly, it's obvious. Vegas has way better defense than Chicago. But like, if you're like 37 years old, which I believe Marc-Andre Fleury is, like, honestly, do you stick around for this entire season with the way it's going? Like, you have a below 900 save percentage, right? You're letting in almost 4 goals a game. Like, do you
Yeah,
want to
but
stick
who's going
around?
to trade for that?
Who says trade? Why? Like, he considered retiring prior to joining the Blackhawks. Who says he just doesn't be like, you know what? I can't do this. I'm retiring. Especially with all the stigma around the Blackhawks with Kyle Beach.
I don't know. I don't know if Fleury's the kind of guy to, I think now that he's taken on the mantle, I don't think he's going to retire midway. He's kind of made a commitment to the team and the obligation. And, obviously you're walking away from a lot of money. You'd be breaching your contract. So I think at the very least, he'll try to ride it out. He might request a trade, but like, who's going to take him, right?
But
7 million, 38-year-old goalie or however old he is with a below 900 save percentage.
I don't think this is about the money though, because if he was considering retiring prior, then he would have left money on the table then too. I mean, who knows? I agree that I don't think Fleury's that kind of guy where he'll just drop and leave everything. But maybe if considering if the Kyle Beach situation, there's more light shown, and they do more investigating towards what the players did, that might force Fleury's hand, especially if some of those leaders, are actually instigating things.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's all just speculation. It's just hard to say what they're going to do, but definitely this is a spiral that it's getting worse and worse. However, out of all the teams we're going to talk about, I think Chicago's, one of the few that has a chance to get out of this. Like, the talent's in that dressing room, right? Like a team with Patrick Kane, an older Fleury, but still Fleury, and Seth Jones, who is not great, but he's not terrible. Like,
He's
that
not
team
playing
should
bad
win.
though.
He's,
I mean,
8 points,
10 games.
Yeah,
Something
like,
like
he's
this.
not doing good defensively, but
Oh
he's
yeah,
doing his role.
offensively. Yeah.
He's putting up points.
I mean, despite everything, he's actually doing better than he was doing in Columbus. So like, that's better than something.
And where's his support on that blue line, right? Like, it's just not there. So
He plays with
I mean,
Calvin
I can see them
DeHaan.
turning around. Yeah, you play with Calvin DeHaan. Like, what chance do you have to stop the puck from going in the net?
I mean, to be fair to Calvin DeHaan's case, Calvin DeHaan's not the worst defensive part in that pairing. Seth Jones is being targeted in a lot of games, and that's how teams are riding out the scores. They're going after Seth Jones there.
Well, he's a $9 million man. Everybody wants him, I guess. But
He's only $5 million right now. It's next year that it starts.
next year. Okay,
So
it's only
they-
$5 million. He's
Yeah.
fine then. He can play like this for now. No one cares.
But I mean, like, you are right though. The talent on the Chicago Blackhawks is there, but I think a lot of it also does come down to the coaching. The coach has Dylan Strome on the fourth pair, and
He's
he
also
has
Strome.
what? And it's also scratched Strome. And Taves is not even in the top six. He has guys like Kurashev and Hardman playing top 6 minutes. Who the hell are these guys? I've never heard of them prior.
Hartman's pretty good. I've never heard of Khrushchev. That's a made up human being.
Is Hardman better than Strome or Taves?
Strome maybe, Taves no.
There's no way.
Yeah, so definitely like mishandling. Like there's that photo floating around of, they call a timeout with like 50 seconds left in the game, and he hands the whiteboard to the players and just walks away.
Yeah.
Like just brutal. Like nothing left. I don't know. I can see a move now that Bowman's gone. Like the new GM's gonna come in and be like, "You're not my guy. Like I don't owe you anything, and I need a win now because I don't have a first next year." So I could see Cullington being moved. Like there's a plethora of good coaches on the market, like Bruce Boudreau, John Tortorella. Like they could get someone good who would know how to make these guys work.
I mean, I think Tortorella would be a great fit with Chicago. If they played a more defensive system, they could do some serious damage.
You think it would? I don't know. Do you think he'd want to fit the vibe there right now, though? I think he's been pretty critical. Like, I mean, maybe he don't want to come turn things around, but I feel like this just isn't his vibe right now.
He did said like he was upset about it. Like James said, he's been pretty critical. But yeah, that's a lot to take around because whoever the new coach is has the mantle of not only fixing this broken team, but fixing the culture.
Yeah, but there's no one other than Tortorella of like NHL caliber or any still prestige coaches that I could see taking on that challenge. Bruce Boudreau, the fucking barbecue guy? You kidding me?
Before you talk smack, look at Bruce Boudreau's record. Look at Barbecue Bruce's record.
Look
at it for itself.
Look at him in the playoffs.
Look at Tortorella in the playoffs recently.
And you got me there.
The only time he won a cup was when he had a cheat for it in 2004. So you be gone with that Barbecue Bruce slander. And at least Seth Jones will like Bruce Boudreau. He just left Columbus to get away from Tortorella, and then he's back in there. Absolute nightmare fuel.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what they do. This is like one of the situations where a lot of teams right now are going with younger, new coaches. And for some it's working, like Buffalo with Don Granato, and some it's not working, and we'll get to them. But I feel like Chicago needs that veteran hand leadership to get these older guys kind of back in motion.
Well, I think it's important to note that just because you have a younger coach doesn't mean it's a good coach. Jeff Ward. But if you look at the Blackhawks situation, they're actually in a really tough situation going forward. And like their moves are tough for this year, but they have zero cap space. The Seth Jones contract kicks in next year, but they have to sign Kubalik, Strome, Doc, and DeHaan. How do do you that? Like,
they got one more year left on Kane and Taze at least.
Yeah, but you have to sign those guys
bridge
next year.
Yeah, you're gonna have to sentence DeHaan to the Phantom Zone. Like he's not getting a penny. He's gone.
But then there's a void in your top four.
Yeah, and that's they're definitely gonna have an issue.
But I mean, you look, they're 31st of 32nd in the league for goals against. Like, their back end could probably use the whole refresh anyway, right?
Yeah. But a lot of that's also the big $9 million contract's fault. He's not. Sorry.
I can see them losing Kubalik again. Like they just lost Pius Suter, who was really good, and they lost him for nothing to Detroit. I feel like Kubalik could be that casualty again.
I could see that happening. With just zero cap space, someone would just have to offer a market value, and that's it. Even below market value, Chicago might not be able to afford it. Because Kubalik right now is fourth in their team for scoring. He has 3 goals, 3 assists in 10 games, which isn't bad. Like that's
really good.
That's respectable, especially on the team that only has 1 win. A team that's only scored 22 goals but has been outscored by 38. It's bad.
It's a shameful situation. If they keep this path, they might into the doghouse, but they're not the only team that's doing horrible. There's one team that was expected to do far better than Chicago, and they've kind of been falling apart. The not-so-golden Knights. Jimbo, how do you feel about them right now?
Yeah, I'm kind of confused about that, to be honest. I'm not sure what's clicking for them because, on paper, they haven't changed a whole ton. I'm pretty big on their goalie there. I think everyone, and I think it was pretty clear from my episode before, I can't remember who did the Pacific. Was it you, Connor? No, you didn't. Wasn't you. It was JJ, I think, did the predictions for the Pacific, and I think it was pretty much in agreement that the Golden Knights were going to take it away because everyone thinks that the Pacific is the worst division in the NHL. And yet, I don't know what's clicking, to be honest, with the Golden Knights. I think it's quite interesting what's happening with the Calgary Flames getting up there, and Edmonton obviously to a good start, but we know that they're a regular season team, so no surprise there. But what, they lost 4-0 against Toronto yesterday, right? Was it 4-0? Like, shut out. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, this is a team that's supposed to be built super strong, and it's no surprise that maybe their GM is in the hot seat and starting to put a lot of pressure onto that Eichel trade situation rumor, right? So I don't know. Have they been dealing with injuries, or
they've been injured to hell?
Yeah.
To start off on their list
That
of
makes
injured,
sense.
they have Mark Stone, Nolan Patrick, Max Pacioretty, Alex Tuck, and William Karlsson. They're all out.
Oh,
right
well,
now.
there you go. Then, yeah.
But to be fair, William Karlsson had played 8 games for this team, and he had 3 points.
Right.
3 points in 8 games is not a top 6 caliber kind of guy.
It just kind of feels like they lost the magic. Like, this isn't the first time Vegas has had an injury slump. Like, I'm not sure if you guys remember their first year where they were on, like, their 6th-string goalie, and it was that kid from Kamloops they had to call up.
Yeah.
But they won. They were good. Like, Vegas has always had this kind of magic, and, like, they kept trading away guys every year for the big fish. Peter Angelo, Mark Stone, trade away Fleury, who's your heart and soul, get rid of your coach who everyone loved, and it kind of feels like they lost the magic. Like, they almost kind of come across as, like, this disposable franchise where, like, if you're not the new hot thing, you're gone.
Except they're really struggling for goals up front here.
Yeah, and I mean,
Marchessault's got 4 points in 9 games. You need more from him.
Yeah, it's pretty bad when Chandler
one's picking up the
Stevenson is
slack.
your top scorer.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. No one's picking up the slack then from those injuries.
Like nothing against Chandler Stevenson. He has 9 points in 9 games. Like, he's doing good.
That's great.
But like, he should not be your top scorer by any means. And you're absolutely right. And with that whole, they just kind of get rid of anyone to get the new hot commodity, and that kind of isn't going away, especially with the Eichel rumors. Like, who are guys mentioning to be going the other way? Alex Tuck, Karlsson, like, these are the guys that were the core of the team, and they're talking about just getting rid of them for the new hot commodity, which is Jack Eichel. Like, it's going to make it difficult in a couple of years when teams or players just don't want to go to Vegas. Because they don't want to just be gone.
Nah, they're never gonna. No one's never gonna want to go to Vegas. I think they've kind of got a trump card there with their location, but
location and taxes.
Yeah,
they're always going to be good.
I mean, why would you go to Vegas when you can go to Florida or Tampa, where you're not going to be just like gone the moment you have a slump? They have lower taxes.
They do, but
better
that's
climates.
The thing. In Florida you're going to make your money. Tampa, besides the whole $18 million over the cap, they sacrificed half their roster this year. Where every year Vegas will throw money at the new guy, so it always feels nice to be the prettiest girl at prom, and I can see them. I mean, they're trying again with Eichel. Run into a bit of a hot spot right now with the Flames offering Kachuk and half the other team, but we'll see where that goes. Hopefully we'll get some breaking news while recording. But yeah, no, it's a very difficult situation for the Vegas Golden Knights, and I don't even know if Eichel fixes that. Like, you blow up your roster, whatever's left of it. You trade Theodore, you trade Riley Smith for money reasons, and you trade Tuck. So you lost even more on your roster, and who's going to be playing? Eichel's not going to be there.
Looking at their injuries, yeah, Eichel doesn't fix that situation because Pacioretty's out for 6 weeks, Karlsson out 6 weeks, Stone out unknown. You bring in Eichel, he's out for 6 months?
You're gonna blow your team up just to have Eichel chill in the press box with Mark Stone? Like, why?
No one's ever considering too. Like, what happens when they all come back? How much does Mark Stone make? Like $9+ million, and then you also have Eichel at 10.5 and Pacioretty at like 6. How the hell do you afford that team? And also,
so
Peter Angelo's like
trade
9.
A lot of guys. Yeah,
like,
you're gonna have to get rid of Riley Smith, Tuck, another guy. And the issue too.
Sorry,
you look at Vegas's. Oh yeah, go ahead, Connor.
I was gonna say, you become the Toronto of the States. That's basically it. Top heavy and nothing below.
And the issue with Vegas too, if you look at their cap friendly, nearly all their guys have no movement clauses. So you're going to go to these guys, you're going to go, hey, I know you like your no income tax playing for one of the best teams in the league in the sunny weather. How about you go to Buffalo, New York? How many dudes are going to waive their no movement clause? Every guy's modified no movement clause is all of the Canadian teams in Buffalo. That's what it is.
I mean, that is true for basically every player. But you also got to consider
Like-
this too. Like Vegas is getting scored on pretty frequently. They've given up 30 goals. That's not like under. That's pretty high for goals against. And if they got rid of Theodore in that trade, for instance, then your defense is just hurting because Peter Angelo's regressed like crazy.
I think it's time we have the conversation that Robin Lehner is not a good goalie.
Dude, that's not true at all. Coming from the Buffalo guy?
Jimbo, look at it. What team has he been good on? The Islanders, a defensive team that made Sergei Varlamov good.
One thing I would say is that, I think that Lehner, he does show himself in waves because he does seem to get injured, right, every once in a while. So he seems to shine and then get injured and shine and get injured. So you don't get a whole consistent season out of him. Like, when was the last time he was, fit to play for a whole season? That doesn't happen very often, does it, right?
Buffalo
and so
days.
maybe it's almost like, to your point, maybe it's an effect that you don't see him all the time, and so when you do see him, you get some highlights, always pretty good, and always injured for 2 weeks. Like, you kind of forget about him, and I don't know. I still think he's a good goalie, though. He showed himself well in Buffalo, and that's saying something. So
Yeah, back in the dark days of Sabres land.
I'm taking a stand now. This is my take. I will die on. Robin Lehner is not a good goalie.
I think he's a decent goalie. I'm not sure if he's a good goalie, but like this is the first time in a couple of years he hasn't worked in a tandem.
You also think Shesterkin is a bad goalie?
He's having a hot start.
Yes, he
I
is.
still don't buy it.
You gave me a hard time for picking him as my first goal in fantasy, so
That was a
I
bad
trust
move.
you.
That was a bad move.
Dude, no, it wasn't.
It's gonna dip. He's playing way above. It's
All
like
right,
Markstrom
boys.
right now.
You're on camera, so
Let it be known by the end of the season when Lehner still has like a sub 9-10 save percentage, and Vegas fans are calling for his head, that I said it here first, that Robin Lehner is not a good goalie.
I mean, to be fair though, with that forward core that Vegas is marching out right now, do you have any like ability to believe that they're able to like sustain offensive pressure and sustain offensive zone time? Because if not, the puck's in Vegas' end, and you're gonna score when you have heavy pressure. That's just how it works.
I mean, I see your point, but I raise you an extra point. Just because you have bad forwards is not an excuse for having, a poor save percentage. Case in point, the Buffalo Sabres. What's Craig Anderson's save percentage? Like .940. Kyle Okposo is playing 16 minutes a night.
The Sabres have gone off
waiting
the
for
hot
Lehner to
starts
make a save.
before.
I'm waiting for Lehner to make a save. He is not a good goalie.
The Sabres have gone off to hot starts before, and they've collapsed before.
Lehner is not the guy. He's a goalie, but he's not the guy. He's not a Fleury. He's not Craig Anderson. He's not the guy. All right? So you take your respect for
I don't
Chandler
agree with that.
Stevenson.
I think you're too harsh on him.
Just so you wait. And the issue is, too, if they trade for Jack Eichel, and the whole thing is like, oh, we'll Tampa Bay Lightning it. We'll put him on the cap, LTIR. They got to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
are they going to make it? There's 82 games.
No, but they at least have their first round pick this year. It's not like they gave away their first round and are going to miss the playoffs like some teams.
I don't know.
Chicago.
It's hard to say. Like, Vegas is in such a weird spot, and I feel like the Eichel trade is such a knee-jerk reaction to do something. I don't think it actually fixes their team.
It doesn't.
I definitely think.
But their goalie's on the
Kyrie-
hot seat, or their GM's on the hot seat. That is.
Yeah. Like, it would, like, don't get me wrong, Eichel goes anywhere, they're instantly a better team. Except for the Buffalo Sabres, apparently. But him going to Calgary, I think, makes a lot more sense for, like, the age and timeline of that team.
Honestly, I see that more being a realistic approach, but with the Vegas GM like literally having to go like we need to win the cup this year or next year, I really see him just pulling out all the stops to make something big happen. Like
I guess I don't know. Like, I feel like they need something more now, and Jack Eichel's more of a long-term thing. I guess. Like, I don't see how that fixes their situation this year.
And, like, the core age, too, like, Peter Angelo's in his 30s, Pacioretty's in his 30s, Stone's in his 30s. They're win now. They're not Eichel in his prime, build the group together like Calgary is with, Lindholm being 26 and Hannafin being 24, right? Like, I think they need to trade for, like, a proven playoff guy who can also chip in points. Sam Bennett. I think Sam Bennett
No way.
makes Vegas
Dude,
a lot
Ben's
more.
making his money and then some in Florida right now. Man's on an absolute steal of a contract. Everyone was making fun of him in the summer for that deal that they overpaid because he had 2 good months. Man's lighting it. Didn't he get like a hat trick? Like, dude's been insane.
Sam Bennett is the best player in the NHL. You can quote me on that.
Wow.
McDavid,
Wow.
who?
JJ would be proud. JJ proud.
This might be a bit of an off tangent then. Is there a fear for Calgary fans that if you trade for Eichel, you guys Sam Bennett him? Like, what if he comes here and he just can't score?
I don't think that's going to happen.
Calgary's cursed, man.
Calgary's cursed, but Calgary is also now has like a world-class coach for the first time in forever. And Daryl Sutter, like, look at this
Whoa.
And like, look at what this guy's
done.
done.
Whoa. This is the same. You were roasting freaking Daryl Sutter when he came into town.
Yeah, I was, and I was very skeptical. Like, I still have some of that skeptics because, like, he still is playing Nick or Brett Ritchie with Mangiapane and Dubé, and he's burying Monahan with Luch and Lewis. Like, don't get me wrong, I still have my reserves, but like, of all the coaches Calgary's had in the last decade, he's by far the best one we've had. You can't really deny that.
Fickle Flame fans.
I'm not saying like I'm not saying Daryl Sutter's like the be all end all, but I think like he's definitely got the team to commit and buy in this year.
So
he is the best coach we've had. Like, I would have preferred a guy like Gallant, but like.
But think about it like this: you have a coach who's very hard on players, who's more defensively oriented, and everyone chips in.
Yeah.
And you're gonna trade for general manager Jack Eichel, who gets coaches fired.
Jack Eichel can't get Daryl Sutter fired from the Flames.
Eichel got Dan Bylsma fired after he won a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, but that was in Buffalo. Sutter and the Flames, you can't get rid of Sutter and the Flames. That's just not how it works.
I don't think you understand. If you guys trade Tkachuk and however many picks and prospects you can find, Eichel is going to have more power in that organization than anybody else.
No, Daryl Sutter will have more power than Eichel, and that will always be the case because Sutter was one of the boys for like the 04 guys.
Yeah, a team that didn't win a cup. You just traded your
the team that should have won the cup, and you know about Rob Murray being a Sabres fan.
You just traded your best player for Jack Eichel. He now holds the key to the castle.
I mean, sure, he may hold the key to the castle, but if anyone gets fired, it's Trey Living. And that, honestly, like, Trey, with what Sutter has done with this team, the team is buy-in. It's not like they're not scoring. They've had how many games over 3 goals this season? Like, what, 4 or 5 out of their 7 games or so? Or 8 games, I should say. Like, that's not bad. For a defensive-minded team, that's pretty good.
It's good, but it's going to be an impossible task to bring in these big personalities and pray to God that they mend.
I mean, you're not wrong, but just on this tangent, though, while we're at it, you also got to consider Tkachuk's also a very big personality, too. And sometimes a fresh restart.
That's what Buffalo needs. Our biggest personality is Jeff Skinner, and all he does is smile. We need a son of a bitch in the dressing room. Tkachuk would fit in perfectly in Buffalo, mainly because we have nothing else to fit in with.
Tkachuk and Cousins would be a dirty pair. But just going back to some of these bad teams, let's move on to the Seattle Kraken while we got a chance.
Like we just said, it's really hard to bring in a bunch of different personalities and make them work. And Dave Haxtell isn't, Gerard Gallant, unfortunately. And we're kind of seeing that right now.
Well, I mean, let's just paint the picture here. Seattle is starting off the season in 10 games, they're 3-6-1, and they have given up 33 goals while only scoring 25. That's not a bad ratio, but that's not what you would expect from a very strong, defensive-oriented team, which they kind of built around. When you look at Seattle, especially when they did their draft, what was their motto? It was defense heavy first, as well as goaltending heavy. And you look at that team, they went on and got a coach who's very offensively minded.
And I'll admit this is something where this might have aged quite well for Austin when he criticized their goaltending lineup. it's still early days, but you look at Grubauer's record so far, it's not been great, right? And look at the amount of goals they've given up for a team that, on paper, before the season started, looked like it was a defensive-minded team. But yet they're ranked one of the last for teams in the league for goals against. Albeit, I'm very big on Dreider, and he hasn't got to prove himself yet. He's only played one game. It was a rough game, but I think he's off injured reserve now. So I think he can still come in and maybe take the reins, or at least kind of share that from Grubauer, and maybe that'll help them out on the back end. But yeah, it's kind of crazy though. Like you look at Tanev, like he's doing pretty good. Hey, like he's a player that's not typically
really good.
Not a player that you would think would be doing this good. So he's really definitely been, if we just kind of look on the other end of what's kind of been a shining light for them, Tanev's been a very interesting run. Hey, like he's getting goals, 6 goals, like
6 goals in 10 games is pretty good for Brandon Tanev. And Jeremy McCann's been playing good. He has 7 points. Mark Giordano having 6 points in 10 games is pretty good for a defenseman too. But it does come down to their goaltending, which you kind of wonder, did they make the right choice in goalies on the UFA market this year?
I already answered this question in the summer, and my take stands. Their goaltending's not good enough.
Did Colorado end up much better? I don't think so.
But
that one I'm shocked by. I'm shocked Kemper's falling apart. But he also doesn't have the Tocchet defense in front of him, which is something I've always said to JJ, and he's not here to defend himself, is that Kemper will not make the Olympic team because he's not going to have a shutdown defense in front of him. And now we're seeing that in Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado has a good defense, but it's not a shutdown style. Any goalie can thrive in
a fast-moving puck team, yeah.
Yeah, any goalie can thrive in a shutdown style defense. That's not a secret, really. But
I think also the issue with Seattle is they didn't have that like Vegas. Obviously, they had the tragedy that happened, but their first. Everyone was talking about no one wanted these guys, and they played their first home game in their arena, and it was this big ceremonious thing. Seattle kind of started off without a whimper, a 4-game road trip, just because they didn't have their arena made. It was this very they didn't have this energy backing them that Vegas did, and also the culture felt a bit different. Vegas was these underdogs, no one believed in them, and now when Seattle came in, we just expected them to be good. So rather than having that edge to play with, how all the guys on Vegas were we're the golden misfits, no one wanted us. All the Seattle guys were kind of feeling pretty good about themselves. They're oh, we just went to a better team.
I mean, I guess, but I don't think anyone looked at Seattle's team that got drafted and was this is a good team. I mean, I think there was some people that thought they could do well, but look at that forward core.
And no one did with Vegas either, right? The core at the time was that's okay, but maybe they had a couple more plays that kind of flew under the radar and really started to shine as soon as they came onto the Golden Knights. Marchessault, he was pretty good. He's still good in Florida, and it was a shame. I'm sure it's a shame to see him go from that organization. But then he was insane, the next season.
But it was all
maybe they're just missing that star power.
But a lot of these guys that Vegas got had flashes in the pan of some brilliance, or were a highly touted out prospect, or were there was something there. There's a lot of guys on Seattle who you're who? Where did this guy come from?
Vegas had those breakouts. William Karlsson scored 42 goals.
Yeah, Karlsson was a big one. That's huge.
And Seattle hasn't been getting I thought Morgan Geekie was going to be that for Seattle. He had that written all over him. A center prospect who's kind of been forgotten about, but he's really skilled. And he had that great first game and nothing since. They're just not having the luck that Vegas had, where everyone had a career year.
Missing that star power, right? They just they're pretty mediocre, and they needed someone just to develop into that next level, and maybe that just hasn't happened.
I always say, the issue with Buffalo is it's not that they don't have good players. You can take any guy on a Buffalo team and throw them on Tampa Bay, and they'd be a good player on the 3rd and 4th line. The issue is that's our entire team. We're just 3rd and 4th liners. And that's Seattle, right? They don't have their guy. When your guy's Brandon Tanev, that's a bit of an issue, isn't it?
That's a big issue.
I love Brandon Tanev. I wish Buffalo got him. I love the Tanev brothers, but come on.
Yeah,
come on.
He's not your Karlsson, right?
No, he's not a William Karlsson.
Yeah.
He's not a William Karlsson. But if you look at Seattle's top 6, their first line, Jaden Schwartz, Alexander Wegenberg, Jonas Donskoy. Then second line, Brandon Tanev, Yanni Gord, and then Kalyan Croak. Like, there's like Tanev and Schwartz are like they're fine, but like that center and right wing depth is basically third and fourth liners, just like you're saying, Austin. Like they needed someone big. Like I'm surprised because they had so much cap space that they didn't throw any towards like a guy like Zach Hyman, for instance.
And also, I think they have too much kindness, and that they got Ron Francis as a GM, who's a good GM, but he's a nice guy. He's been in the NHL a long time. He has a lot of friends. Vegas went out and got the biggest prick of a GM in George McPhee, who was threatening teams. He got draft picks, and I kind of got the vibe that like Eric Francis was like, "Oh, I'll take this guy," and they're like, "Or unless you give us picks," and like, "We're not going to give you picks," and then he just moved on from it. He didn't have that ruthless edge that Vegas did.
Yeah.
Their biggest threat, wasn't it to Calgary being like, give us a first round or we'll take Giordano, and then Treeling was
Calgary
like,
just said, yeah.
Okay, go for it, bud.
Yeah, take it.
Like I get you gotta keep your price, but you didn't get one trade. Like Vegas had 3 first-round picks in their first draft. That's insane. That's a crazy amount of picks. And Seattle, granted, they got second overall and they got a good player, but that's it. Like they were not ruthless enough.
I mean, they could have like extorted a lot of teams, but they never did. A team like Montreal, they probably could have extorted. I think Bergevin would have tried to keep heaven and earth to keep Price around, but they never threatened to take Price. When the rumor came out that Price could be available, they're like, no, it's not true. Why?
Yeah, and also like Ron Francis, he's a great team builder, as you look at what he did with Carolina, but he's never the flashy, hard GM. He likes to slowly build the team through the draft. And granted, now, Carolina's one of the best teams in the league, but how many years did it take to get there? And how many luck in the draft did they get, getting second overall a year when they were like 14th to get Svechnikov?
That was a big one.
That's a huge one, right? So I feel like almost Seattle's content with doing that. Like they want to make the playoffs, but they have a good core and they got Beniers coming, so like there's no pressure right now to do it now. And I kind of just feel like that, like we were thinking they were going to be a Vegas part 2, and they just haven't been.
Yeah, they've been very different, right? And they go and make Giordano the captain, which still confuses me, man. The dude's going to be gone in a couple of years, and you need another captain, and you've just said you franchise and you're a second captain in 3 years. Like, I don't get it, man.
I don't know if Gio will be gone in a year or so.
In a couple of years.
No, he's a UFA after this year.
Oh, so you think he will be gone, you're saying?
No, I'm saying he won't. Like, well,
oh, no. I think he'll sign. He'll sign, but like he's not going to be playing until he's 43.
Char's playing until he's 43.
No, he's not. No, I don't think so.
And like Gio's falling down, but like relatively speaking, if you look at like WAR, like wins above replacement, Gio's still way over 60. That's not bad for a guy who's in his late 30s.
I think Gio comes back to Calgary, and I think he rides that one last year, and then he retires. You don't think so?
No.
There's only 2 Flames that live in Calgary.
Seattle.
I don't think he has a place in Seattle. I think this is just a 1-year thing for him. His whole family's still here.
I don't think so.
I mean, I would love to see Gio back in the Flames. Like, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, I just don't see it happening. Especially, like, at what price point would you go after Giordano?
800,000.
2 mil. Take it or leave it.
Yeah, no more than that. That's sense.
Yeah, two mil is about right. I mean, if you're giving good Branson, 2 mil.
I think just like being the first captain of a brand new franchise is a pretty prestigious thing, and I don't think he would give that up to go back to Calgary for a year.
That's the character Gio was. He won't.
Yeah, he is a good guy. Yeah.
All right, James. Let's make a little friendly wager. If Gio comes back to Calgary, you owe me a bottle of 800 coconut.
Yeah, that's fine.
If he stays in Seattle, I owe you. Yeah, both
okay,
ways.
I'm in.
Deal. Alrighty. I'm telling you, he's coming back, and that tequila is gonna taste damn good.
Sounds good.
I just don't see it happening. But I mean, just going back to you mentioned goaltending as like why would they go for Grubauer? There are some great goalies in that UFA market who played with a team that did not have a good defense in front of it. You had guys like Linus Ullmark, Peter Mrazek, and arguably the best goaltender on the market, who had
Craig Anderson.
Nope, but it is an Anderson, Freddie. The Bluetooth,
and he was a former Carolina player.
Like, I'm surprised he did not get taken. Freddie Anderson. Like, it just makes sense. He faces a lot of shots, he eats a lot, and he plays a ton of minutes.
I think there was a fear around Freddie just because he had that injury with Toronto, and when he came back at the end of the year, he got lit up in the AHL.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
So I think like a couple teams were hesitant, but Carolina was just kind of get any press away from the Tony DeAngelo signing. So, but there was a lot better goalies. Like the Grubauer one, like it baffles me. It absolutely baffles me.
I mean, he's on a good team, President's Trophy winners, right? Or
you know what? To give it to James, you know, maybe he is a good goalie because Kemper's now playing in Colorado and he's struggling. So maybe it's not all defense there. Granted, Colorado's defense is a bit different this year. They have a bit younger guys.
I mean,
like
look what happened to Bobrovsky. I mean, he's the living legend, signs that insane $10 million deal that first season, or at least last season. You know, he was horrific, and you know I soured on him so bad. I had him in fantasy. You know, it was complete destruction of my whole season. It was ruined by Bob, and you know, not a chance I would ever draft him again. Comes back this season, he's back on the case, just that. So
it's hard too. Like goalies are such a finicky part of the sport. Like the reason why we always see these rookies do good is just because no one knows how to score on them, and then they get figured out. Like whenever when Koskinen came into the league, and everyone's like, "This is the greatest Finnish goalie of all time. No one can score on Mikko Koskinen." And then they figured out if he put it on his glove side, he'll let it in every time, and then he became immediately garbage.
Okay, I had some beef with Koskinen, just similar to that. I took Koskinen last year in fantasy, absolute garbage. He comes back this year, absolutely amazing. It's the curse.
It's by those situation though, because Mike Smith died.
Yeah, it's the curse.
Yeah.
Same thing happened with Ben Bishop with me. Still not over it.
Yeah, like it's you know, hockey is one of the only sports where you have a position that's so crucial to team success and yet so finicky. Where every year the goalies are different, they're good or bad, they make teams, they break teams, right? So it's just overall a difficult situation.
I do look forward to when Drager comes back, because he's back now, I believe. Hopefully he doesn't die again, because I don't know. He really played very well in Florida last year. Doesn't mean he's going to play well this year, but I think he could really help out, you know. So.
Do you think he gets more starts than Grubauer going forward?
No, I think they'll tandem it. I mean, Grubauer has a crease right now just because he's played 8 games and Dreider's played 1. But I think, if Dreider comes back and he plays well, they'll tandem it, and then they'll go from there. But I see them probably being a tandem for the rest of the season if they both stay healthy.
Do you, and I guess we kind of touched on this lightly, but do you boys think if come like February this team still sucks, that they either stand pat and try to build around this core, or do they take all the assets they have and blow it up and just get as many draft picks?
I don't think they have much assets to blow up, dude.
You don't think Brandon Tanev could get some playoff team will bite on Brandon Tanev the way he's playing?
Some team will absolutely try to, but I mean, I guess Tanev's not a piece that you look at going forward and be like, this is a guy we need to build around. Like, no disrespect, but like Tanev's not, you know, the guy, or should be the guy.
I think all they can do is build around the good pieces they have and start actually signing players in the offseason and start drafting players. And I think that's all they can do. I don't think there's really a whole lot they can sell. I think they've got to do all their work in the offseason.
I mean,
interesting.
If you're talking about players that they can salvage, like the only players that they really have that they should keep, you know, to build around is Vince Dunn and Morgan Geekie. That's really about it. Everyone else is kind of up in age and basically expendable if they're going to go for a full rebuild.
It might be worth it, and then, you know, end of the month or, March, April time, sign Matty Beniers once his college year finishes just to get him a couple games in.
I mean,
see what he can do.
If they somehow make the playoffs with a weak Pacific Division, like they sign Matty Beniers, they get like a Cale Makar-esque effect going into the playoffs.
Is the Pacific a weak division? I mean, Anaheim sucks, but Edmonton's tearing it up. Calgary's tearing it up. Vegas is struggling, but they'll turn it around. San Jose's good again. LA's kind of good. Like, the Pacific's actually been a lot better than we thought.
Yeah, but it's also early. How many of those teams do you think sustain it?
San Jose's going to sustain it. They don't have a guy throwing games anymore. They're basically going to win the cup now.
You're not wrong. There's no Vander Kane there.
No, like, it's definitely a different situation.
Although Timo Meyer just got hurt for San Jose, so that's going to be a big blow to their offense.
No matter. They got Rudolph Balcers. They don't need anybody else.
I don't see it, but if we're talking about like someone strong that we thought, or something strong that is kind of been disappointing, I think we got to talk about Montreal now.
I didn't think they were going to be strong. I didn't have them making the playoffs.
James has been waiting for this Cole Caulfield moment. He's going to town. He's been waiting all year for this.
I should say, I have nothing against the player Cole Caulfield. I think he's a great player. My issue is of course when he got called up last season, and there's 10 million TSN and Sportsnet posts about him that he was the greatest thing alive to a man that was unproven, and you just could not get him off your feed. So I think it's very ironic now that he's getting sent down to the minors, and it's just radio silence.
I do want to add one thing too, because this is a bit of sourness. And it's not just TSN and Sportsnet. ESPN released their top 100 players in the NHL and had Cole Caulfield at 71. Johnny Gaudreau and Elias Lindholm and Andrew Mangiapane, three Flames who are all about a point per game guys right now, all off that list.
That's pretty funny. I didn't know that stat. Yeah, I think he got very hyped up, and I feel bad for him, because he did have a very good postseason. No one will argue how good he was when he came in, got called up. But then I feel like it's almost that pressure mounted, and we know how the culture over there in Montreal is, right? I mean, they made it to the Stanley Cup Finals. That is pretty insane. So of course this season they're going to have similar expectations, if not higher, right? I mean, I'm sure a lot of fans thought make it to the final last year. We clearly have a team that can make it to the cup. When you look on the paper and you see Shea Weber's out, Price is out. Shea Weber may never play again. Those are two huge pieces gone. But players like Cole Caulfield and the rest, they still carry the same weight from the fans. But the roster has changed dramatically from a leadership perspective, and arguably those two guys are the ones that backpacked to the final, and so that pressure remained. And obviously, Cole specifically, I know he's kind of taken a lot of the heat, but it's not just a Cole thing; it's the whole team. The whole team has not performed to where they were last year, and I think it's pretty understandable when you look at those two big pieces alone that have been missing.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to add to the Cole Caulfield thing a little bit. Like, this is a kid still, and in his first 10 games that he played last year in the regular season, he had a 0.5 points per game. That's not like blow you out of the water. He had 4 goals, 1 assist in 10 games, and then in the playoffs, he only had 4 goals and 8 assists. The hype around this kid is definitely hurting him right now. It's not his fault that obviously there's a lot of things going wrong with Montreal, like Jimbo said, but his numbers aren't there, but he's also a rookie, and to tout him as one of the top 100 best players in the league, that's a lot of pressure, especially in the most die-hard hockey market in the world.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talk about how he's overthinking, right? He's not just going with the shoot first mentality. He's overthinking the puck, and it seems like that's really, he just needs that reset, which is why sending him down does make a lot of sense. If he can go down there, score some good goals, really tear it up, just reset his mind and then kind of start things over, because I think that's exactly what he needs, because the hype has just gotten too much in Montreal. I think just too much expectations. People thought for sure he's going to win the Calder. Thought it was no competition. I think it just got a little out of control.
I mean, the hype is really crazy in Montreal about Cole Caulfield. I was there recently, and going through their airport, his face is everywhere. Everywhere. You don't see Nick Suzuki, you don't see Carey Price, you don't see Shea Weber, you don't see Jonathan Drew and Josh Anderson. It's Caulfield. His face is everywhere. And
this is for a guy that played how many games last season?
10.
20?
He has 20 NHL games.
Yeah. That's pretty wild. Huh.
He's an electrifying player on a non-electrifying team.
Yeah.
That's why they're marketing him. But the issue is, like James said, they lost Weber, they lost Price. Those are two tough shutdown guys. And now, they have Suzuki, Romanov.
They lost Edmondson, too.
Edmondson, too. So you lose all these shutdown guys, and your coach still coaches this shutdown style, but your whole team's young. Like, I just don't know how this is going to work. I think they need a coaching change, to be honest, with how their team's built. It's not built to be the shutdown team, but it's a bit hard to find a French coach who doesn't, coach that style. So it's going to definitely be a difficult shake. In Montreal, like this this record they have after making the final is unacceptable.
By
They
the
will
end of
not
the
let this
day,
go.
I mean, it's no longer the Canadian division. They're playing, and I know they played some. Obviously, they played. What did they have to play? One non-Canadian team to make it to the final last year, right? Is that how it worked out?
They
They just
played
had to play
two.
one. Well, including the final, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They only had to beat Vegas.
Yeah, they only had to beat one American.
Yeah, and so at the end of the day, I mean, it's no longer a Canadian division. It's the floodgates are opened. You're playing teams that you haven't played in a couple of years.
They finished,
Very different.
like there's talks that Buffalo now wants a couple roster guys instead of just draft picks because they're playing well now. That's only after 6-7 games. Montreal finished 18th last year, but they made the final. They shouldn't have been in the playoffs if it weren't for the Canadian division. And so they're not a good team, and there's this weight of pressure from the Montreal, cult that it is to make the playoffs and, win the cup this year, which this team isn't a playoff team. Like, in no world is this team a playoff team.
No, they're absolutely not. Like, this team, top to bottom, is not a playoff team. Like, can you name their four centers? Can you name their top two right now?
Suzuki and I don't know if they still have Drouin playing center. Dvorak?
It would be Suzuki and Dvorak, but Drouin's hurt, or he might have just gotten hurt actually. But it was Suzuki, Drouin, then Dvorak, and they gave up a first round pick for Dvorak to play him on the third line.
Fourth center, Luke Evans.
No, Adam Brooks.
Really? Wow. Okay. Ouch.
Yeah, like this team is not an actual playoff team. Like, sure, Tyler Toffoli and Nick Suzuki are both great players, but that team does not make the playoffs in the regular year, and that's what you're seeing.
Let me pose a question then. So Carey Price is slated to return, I believe, on the 6th or 7th. When he comes back, can he backpack this team back into where they belong, into playoff spot?
No.
I don't think so.
He was struggling in the regular season last year.
Yeah.
But in the playoffs, he was insane.
Yeah, in the playoffs.
He got lit up in the AHL last season, and then came back. Everyone's making fun of him.
in Calgary. He sucks in the regular season now. He's at that age.
He's not good in the regular season.
I don't know. I think a lot of people started to doubt him once it was getting towards the end of the regular season last year, and then he got lit up in the AHL, and then everyone was making fun of him, saying this guy sucks. He's not the same price as he used to be. But then the playoffs came around, and he was a completely different goalie. He was unstoppable.
Yeah, but the playoff atmosphere, you are the netminder of the Montreal Canadiens. This is the world on your shoulders. That's a hell of a lot different than the regular season when it's a Tuesday night against Columbus, Ohio. It's just hard to get up for those games.
Yeah.
And I just think at his age, he's not that guy.
As well as
I think you just kind of doubt him.
As well as Montreal's not a team that is built to make the playoffs, but they're a team that's built that if they do make the playoffs, can do some damage. Their whole defensive identity and their whole identity in general is around beating the shit out of their opponents. And that is what they do. That's what playoff hockey is. The refs put the whistles away in playoff hockey, which is an issue of its own. But that works in Montreal's favor.
Penalties are called in the regular season. You can't get away with cross-checking a dude 30 times now. And that's going to hurt Montreal. They don't have a good penalty kill. I don't think they have what it's in them to make the playoffs, and they gave up a draft pick too. I don't think Bergevin's the man for this job anymore, to be honest. I think he's ran his course, and he's shown that he can't build a roster successfully.
So I guess a question is, who's first to go? Is it Bergeron or their coach?
Oh, coach. It's always the coach. It gives the GM a little bit of breathing room.
Yeah, but how many coaches has Bergeron had? How many years has he had? Especially after the whole incident with Kotkaniemi and how he wasted the third overall pick, and then you didn't even match his offer. I know Kotkaniemi got overpaid, but
yeah, I guess the fear for Matt Molson, or not Matt, the Molson family that owns Montreal is Bergevin expires this year, so if you fire him, you have to pay him severance. When you can just ride this year out, see how the team does, let him get a new coach. And if they don't make the playoffs, you can just let him walk.
But the
The
coach,
Canadians are in such a tough spot. Like, I don't understand how this team is up against the roof of the salary cap when you look at this roster.
The contracts are brutal.
It's not like that's going away next season either. It's getting
No.
worse next season when Suzuki's contract kicks in. So,
And they're going to have to pay Cole Caulfield in a few years. I know
Right.
that's like, we're always looking a bit too ahead in the future, but like, for a team that's so cap strapped and they're not getting that money, and they
for
still
a
have to
team
pay
that
out
hasn't
money.
had success in however many years and would still, I know they last season was a success, but like if we negate that season, this is a team that hasn't been a successful team for many years. How are they in this situation?
Is making the finals once even a success? Nashville did it, and they signed all those contracts, and they suck now. Dallas made the final. San Jose,
the Ottawa Senators almost made the final,
Ottawa.
and then had to blow up their team because they
That was
just sucked.
bad.
Like, one miracle runs are fun. That Ottawa Senators run was one of the most fun playoff runs of all time, but it's not a sustainable way to build a franchise. You have to be built for the long term. You got to build a winner. And I don't think Montreal has that.
I mean, if you look into the long term for Montreal too, one thing that's got to be concerning for Habs fans is Jeff Petrie. He's kind of regressed a ton this year, and he's 33 years old, and he's signed for 4 more years.
He
And
has
over
been
$6
injured this
million.
year, and so he hasn't got to play a lot, but that's the thing. Every injury when you're 30 and older, it's going to weigh you down a lot more.
Yeah, and at 6.25 million with a no movement clause. That's
I don't know the situation with their cap, but isn't there going to be, like, if all these older guys who are signed forever retire, isn't there some kind of cap penalty?
not
Like,
to
surely
them.
there's got to be.
Well, if it's
Not on
Carey,
the Weber one, because Nashville signed. Someone else signed Weber.
Nashville's would take the cap penalty if Weber retires, but I think it's only if it's
Which
Carey
is also
Price, because
the
everything
Weber
else
one's
is
bullshit.
like everything else on Montreal is not like a horrible cap if the guys retire.
Yeah.
It absolutely is though for Weber though. Weber's is, and Weber and Price are the only two that are bad, and I believe those ones came before the current CBA.
They're on legacy contracts, right?
Yeah.
There's apparently a rumor that Weber's already retired and he's working as a scout. That's what Drouin said.
Who's he working for, Montreal?
Montreal, yeah, he's just going around with Bergevin. But they haven't filed any official report, like retirement papers, which is like such a Montreal thing to do, like not actually report a guy retired.
I mean, they'd probably have to. The NHL would eventually crack down on and be like, "Hey, what's the issue?" Like,
Well, that's the thing. Like, Montreal just says, "Oh, he's injured and he's traveling with the GM."
But what's the downside to him retiring other than for Nashville? Like,
there's no downside
Canadians.
for Montreal.
So
There's
why
zero
would they?
downside.
Why would they not say that then? 'Cause
Maybe
just
there's hope that he
it'd
comes
look bad
back.
or what?
I don't know.
I think it's
Bergevin's
already
a prick.
priced.
I don't know.
I think it's already priced in. I think everyone kind of knows that he's not going to come back. It seems pretty clear, but
It's going to be a horrible summer for Nashville.
Yeah, when Shea Weber retires, that's gonna be horrible because I think it's not this year, but in 2 years' time, that's like a $23-24 million cap penalty.
Yeah,
That's nuts. That's a quarter of your cap gone like that.
I feel like they'll work something out.
But I mean, we talked about Montreal being like kind of screwed. Most of their forward core, they only have one guy over 30.
No, it's a young forward core. They just don't
Yeah,
have a
there you
great
go.
coach for it.
Yeah, Montreal only has one guy over 30, and it's Mike Hoffman. And like, they got a good coach. They can probably do some damage still.
Yeah, but just because you have young forwards doesn't mean they're young and good. Like, the Nick Suzuki payment was a bit premature. I think we can all agree Duran hasn't panned out. Like, they have these young guys, but they're just not good enough to win. This is a very meddling team.
Drouin hasn't panned out, but Suzuki's not been bad. I mean, in 11 games, Suzuki has 8 points.
Yeah, he's definitely been that highlight.
Right?
Impressed.
I mean, a guy like Brandon Gallagher, who makes the most money of all their forward core, only has 4 points.
I know, I picked him up in fantasy, and I had to drop him. He's been so terrible.
He signed for 6 more years, by the way.
Yeah, but Gallagher's a hardworking guy. That's a good contract. I like Gallagher.
At $6.5 million? The
That's,
guy's
Gallagher
making
at that.
$250,000 less than Johnny Gaudreau.
I would take Gallagher over Gaudreau.
Johnny won't be making that next year. So
I mean,
Gallagher can do it. Maybe not put up the points that Johnny Gaudreau puts up in the regular season, but he puts up a hell of a lot more in the playoffs. So
Honestly,
I would take Gallagher
and
any day.
to me, 6.5 nowadays doesn't sound like a lot. Because I mean,
that's not
after all
much.
those contracts, like those 9.5s, those 9s that were off this year, like
yeah.
I
And
don't,
he
I
brings
don't
the
think 6.5 is
intangibles.
terrible.
He hits.
Yeah.
He fights.
He does
puts
stuff in the
pressure.
playoffs.
Yeah, he's a leader.
He does stuff in the 6 points in 22 games.
He's a leader. What can I say? Crashes the net. Does all the right things.
6 points in 22 games. Does stuff in the what?
Defensively responsible too. Put him on the PK.
He's at a 0.25 points per game in the playoffs that last year.
That's just how I see it.
I'm just saying, Kotkaniemi costs the same, is younger, putting up better points, and had more points in the playoffs last year. If you're going to give Brandon Gallagher that money, I don't see why Kotkaniemi's not worth it.
Young too, full potential. That was just such a garbage throwaway by them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, Kotkaniemi, like, third overall, 3 years ago? Like, why? Why throw that away?
I couldn't tell you. Honestly, I couldn't.
Like,
I didn't get the mindset behind that.
Like, yeah, okay, congrats. Now you as well, like, you gave away a first to get Christian Dvorak to fill that center depth hole. And you got Carolina's first, but like, so you basically have a worse team with worse center cores, gave away one of your top young guys, and now instead of having like a top 5 draft pick, you have what, 20th, 21st overall? Like, what the?
Yeah, you're not going to get something good out of it. And I think, Montreal, like out of all the teams we talked to, I don't really see a way out of this. I think it's just going to be a long and hard year for Habs fans, unfortunately.
They're going to have a long, hard year, but I sadly don't think they're going to have a worse year than this next team. We're finally on the Arizona Coyotes, boys.
I've been looking forward to this.
No, bro, they got the Kachinas. Everything's fine.
The Kachinas are the only thing that's nice about the Coyotes on the ice. There is nothing else that is good about the Coyotes.
Also, Kachina jerseys low-key overrated, but we won't get into that right now.
Yikes.
I mean, they're not the peyote jerseys. The peyote jerseys? Oof.
Pretty sick.
And so, Arizona, last in the league for goals for, last in the league for goals against, 0 wins, last in the league in general. This team is terrible.
They went the opposite way. I've never seen a team fully embrace the tank this much. They signed Carter Hutton, unironically. Like, he is a starting goalie again in the NHL.
He is not their starting goalie anymore. He played 2 games, posted, and get ready for this. This made me almost spit out my drink when I was doing the research. He has a goals against of 7.76. 7 over.
He got injured as well.
Over how many games?
In 2 games, he has a goals against of 7.76.
That was
no. That's 3 games. That's 3 games played.
Oh right, sorry, 3 games played.
That's with Hutton?
Yeah,
that's Carter Hutton, because
God.
he got pulled in the third because of an injury.
Wow.
Yeah, and he has a .741 save percentage.
I'm sorry, I was thinking about this. I know we talked about how Bill got all these picks. It's pretty clear this team was tanking, apparently alongside Buffalo, but who knows how that goes. But it's pretty clear on the roster that this is not an NHL team, right? And they got all these picks, but like when you're this bad, like you're doing permanent damage to your franchise. Not as if Arizona doesn't fill enough stadium space. Like you are. This is terrible. Like, you're doing permanent damage to the reputation of this organization by being this bad.
You've been gutting your franchise. There's nothing to build towards. Like, this is going to hurt a long time.
And they've been bad for long enough, and then they rebuild and do this. Like, wow.
I mean, of all the times, I would agree, but like, I think this time it's actually the right move. Instead of trying to meddle and like, because they've always tried to be like kinda competitive in some sense. Like, fully commit to the build, get the first overall this year, and get Shane Wright. Right? Get Connor Bedard the next year. Like, those guys are fundamentally going to be franchise players. Might as well tank for them. And, the goal isn't now. The goal is in 4 years when Austin Matthews becomes a UFA. Be good by then. Because, no matter what, if you're
Connor,
I think you'll lose
trade all your guys.
Okay.
Put the entire franchise on your one good player, Chychrun, and try to win Shane Wright. Oh, wait, sorry, let me adjust. Blow it all up, trade all your good guys, put your entire franchise on Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and try to get Connor McDavid. Oh, wait, let me try one more time. Blow it all up, trade all your good guys, put your entire franchise on Shane Doan, and try to get Patrick Kane. How many times do they do this? This is unacceptable. No, this is not okay. We cannot let this happen. This team sucks.
And they wonder why their arena, won't let them renew or whatever. Like, Jesus, man, this team is brutal.
I will say this. It will work this time because the NHL lottery odds are now in their favor for the first and only time.
They're still not good odds. It's a goddamn lottery you're betting on. And like Jimbo said, like top to bottom, this is a horrible organization.
Yeah.
The arena's kicking them out because their owner hasn't been paying the bills. Oliver Ekman-Larsson wanted out because they didn't pay his salary on time. Like, what a colossal failure. And I'm so sick and tired of hearing that Bill Armstrong is a good GM. Anybody can trade guys for picks. He's done nothing to show that he's good.
JJ is sweating bullets listening to this right now. He's screaming.
I mean,
He's
I will
shaking in anger.
give him this. Bill Armstrong did get another top 5 pick. You can't deny that. Montreal.
If they finish top 5. He's not a good GM.
Do you really think Montreal's going to turn it around?
I guarantee you they're not going to finish bottom 5.
I don't know.
They're not going to be good, but they're not going to be the worst team, bottom 5 in the league.
I think they could. They could threaten.
Okay, is Tim Murray a good NHL GM because he had 3 picks in the 2015 NHL draft when he was the Buffalo GM? No. Anybody can get draft picks. It's not that goddamn hard. Trading guys for draft picks is the bare minimum. Anybody can rip a franchise down. Can you name me the GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs when they did it to get Matthews? I can't.
No.
And you make a good point, right? It's like it's easy to tear down and get draft picks, but you got to do something and build a franchise with that. And I think Arizona's proven they can't do that.
Yeah, and to further build on Jimbo's point, it's not just like before where you tear it down. Because of the cap and it staying flat, it is easy as hell to get a draft pick. You have a bad contract, I'll take it for a draft pick. He is doing the bare minimum.
Yeah, but
like
again,
a puppet saw could do what Bill Armstrong's doing. Until these draft picks are made and turn into players, he hasn't done anything.
Bill.
The goal right now isn't for Arizona to do anything but just tank, get as many good prospects and as good of a team going for 4 years down the road. The goal is not. It's not like Shane Wright and Connor Bedard are going to be goals. Don't get me wrong, but I think we all know that Arizona is going to just throw as much money as they possibly can in Austin Matthews the moment he hits UFA status.
They already threw a bunch of money at Quentin Kelly.
You've lost your captain. You've lost all your stars. Your arena's kicking you out, and your fans are angry. And your whole plan is, no, don't worry. In 4 years, we're going to try to get a UFA. Hopefully, he'll sign with us, please.
I will
Poverty
say this.
franchise. Move them out of Arizona.
You can't have angry fans in Arizona because you would assume they'd have fans. There's no fans there.
Well, JJ's on the fence right now. They're about to lose their one guy, so they got to turn this around.
I mean,
like,
do
you know how many minutes Andrew Ladd has played this season per game? 14 minutes and 47 seconds. Andrew Ladd, the guy who sucked in the AHL last year.
I do want to say, though, I did call it out. Ghost of Spear is a good player. He has 5
assists, and he's a minus
their best
6.
Player.
Yeah, he's a
minus
6 on a team that has given up 42 goals.
Jacob Chychrun, minus 16.
In Chychrun's defense, I have him in both my fantasy teams. He plays 25 minutes a night. That man is sweating. Okay? That man has just been told to climb over the World War II trench and just run at the enemy. Okay? You cannot blame him for what he is going through. Yeah, this man is drowning right now.
But you think he'd at least have 1 point. Something.
I think it's just damage control for him.
Yeah.
It's going to come too. He takes a stupid amount of shots.
He's got the most shots in the whole team, but no points. He's the worst plus minus.
So it'll come for Chychrun. I'm not terribly worried about him. But Chychrun's just like OEL. He's not he's a quiet guy and he's a great defenseman. Are you going to force him to be the face of the franchise and into a leadership role?
I mean, he is the face. He's the best player, but I'm not sure if he's the face of the franchise. Talking to an Arizona fan in JJ, I think Lawson Crouse is more like the personality there, which is
Well, he likes
Lawson
Krause because he's a tough guy, but the fans are buying Chychrun jerseys, not
There's
Lawson
no
Krause jerseys.
yeah, okay, yeah, but there's no fans in Arizona. We've already established that.
And the fact that we're arguing over Jacob Chychrun or Lawson Krause proves my point. This is a poverty franchise. Holy crap, is this team bad? And I get, like, I've always been hard on the Sabres because they've never done a rebuild right. But this time, they've built up their AHL department. They've hired guys in the analytic department. What has Arizona done?
Well, the last
You
time
can't just take a bunch of young guys and throw them at the board.
To be fair, though, Arizona tried the analytics thing and it didn't really work out.
Yeah, they drafted Barrett Hayden 5th overall over Philip Zadina. Brutal.
Yeah.
It's just everything that, like, you know who the head coach of the Arizona Coyotes is off the top of your head, Jimbo?
No idea.
Connor, do you know?
It's not talking
Look at that.
anymore.
No. Alex Torgini. Do you know what team he coached last?
Didn't he
No.
coach like a World Junior team?
He was a coach of one of the World Junior teams, yes, but do you know what his regular season team was?
In the NHL?
Wasn't an NHL team.
AHL?
Wasn't an AHL team.
WHL?
OHL, the Ottawa
Oh,
67s. And he's a head coach of an NHL team. He never was an assistant coach. They just threw him to the Wolves. This man every night has to go to a press conference and defend Carter Hutton. I don't know how much his salary is. It's not enough.
Yikes.
Like, shame on the GM, shame on the owner for letting this situation happen in Arizona. Like, this is absolutely unacceptable in the NHL.
Yeah, but they're not moving anywhere.
No, unfortunately not. The NHL doesn't move teams anymore.
No, the NHL
Yeah,
doesn't
they-
move teams. As well as, like, they're going to move to Tucson, Arizona. And just the way how Arizona is, like people think it's like a major difference. Scottsdale, Tucson, Phoenix, that's the whole city. It's like
Not
New
Tucson,
York between
Tempe.
Tempe. But that's all the same city. Like it's
No,
like
yeah, like,
how you
it's
say
still
New York
close.
is like you got New Jersey, you got Brooklyn, you got Manhattan. It's the same thing. It's like the same concept there, just in Arizona.
You know their main goalie with Hutton out has played 8 games and he's a .922 hey save percentage. It's not
Yeah,
bad.
Veggie Malka came out of nowhere. He's
Yeah.
actually a pretty good goalie.
Where
I
does this
watched
guy
him
come
against
from?
Sabres. Where are these guys coming from? Poverty franchise. There's nothing good about the Arizona Coyotes. This poor guy is drowning in their net.
I
He's
mean,
doing good.
He's doing good, man. Yeah.
when your team has given up 42 goals against and only scored 13-4, like that, those are good numbers. Like he's outperforming Robin Lehner right now.
Yeah, well, we've already established that Robin Lehner is not a good goalie.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but this is also that like rookie goalie that no one's ever seen. So no shooter has a scouting report on him yet.
I
Don't
didn't even know
worry.
this guy was a real human being before James said his full name. Crazy fun stat about him, though. He's faced 174 more shots than Carter Hutton, and has only let in 3 more goals than Hutton's let in.
It's pretty crazy.
Like, this is a tank beyond a tank has ever been. And, like, I don't know how you rebuild the culture in that room with the new young guys. It's going to be extremely difficult.
I mean, to Arizona's credit, they are dealing with some injuries. You got Connor Timmins, he's injured. Alex Galchenyuk, he's injured. Ryan Dzingel, he's injured. Nick Schmaltz, he's injured. Like, they should have at least won one game.
Who?
I don't know.
Against who?
I'm not sure what team they can beat.
I mean,
There's-
who did they play?
They'll probably beat the Calgary Flames, knowing how they go. They couldn't even beat the Ottawa Senators last year.
Yeah, but Ottawa's always that sneaky team that beats all the good ones.
Honestly, of all the teams that they've played, they've not faced any easy opponents. To be honest,
I don't
There's
know.
no excuse.
I no excuse for this. Exactly.
Not at this. How many games they played? 8, 9, 10, 10.
This is a beer league level record.
Like,
This is not the greatest league in the world.
the only two teams that they've played that are like shitty would be the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Red Hot Buffalo Sabres.
And how did the Columbus do against them? This
8-2.
shitty team. Yeah, 8-2.
But they almost beat Buffalo. It was 2-1.
That was a close game. Yeah, both goalies played studs out, lights out.
Yeah, but then
But then what
afterwards they played St. Louis, Edmonton, the Islanders, Florida, Tampa, the Caps, the Hurricanes, and then they played the Flyers. Those are all good teams. They haven't had an easy schedule.
The Islanders started pretty garbage this year.
Yeah, because they don't have Varlamov in that, or not Varlamov. They don't have who's their goalie again? Not Varlamov.
They didn't have Varlamov, so they had Ilya Letshinin, and they still beat the Arizona. Yeah, they still beat the Coyotes.
I mean,
like
Letshinin's not bad.
He's better than however you pronounce that Coyotes goalie name.
Yeah, but okay, Arizona is finally getting a chance to play a shitty team. They play this Friday because the day we're recording it's November 3rd. They're playing the Ducks, and then they play Seattle, and then after Minnesota they play Chicago. They legit have a chance to win 2 games in the next 4 games.
That or those all garbage teams have a chance to get their confidence back up against the Arizona Coyotes.
I mean, there's an equal chance, but with everything that's happening, I think Chicago gives Arizona their first win of the season.
Chicago just had their first win of the season.
Yep. Sadly.
I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think so. I generally don't think we're going to see a win from this team until December.
So, okay.
That's pretty bold.
Okay. You think this team is going to beat the Sabres record?
For 18-game lose streak?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. They're at 10 already. They just have to lose 8 more.
They're at 10 already, but they play 3 teams that are in the bottom half or bottom 10 in the league in the next 4 games.
The Sabres record, as impressive as it is, they were in the toughest div last year, the Division of Death. There's no excuse for this Arizona 10. The 10 games already enough is bad enough. It's a shameful record. The team should be ashamed of itself. But 8 more, they can do it. They can absolutely do it. Jay Beagle's their number 1 center. Are you really trying to tell me this is going to win a hockey game?
I mean, maybe.
Connor Timmins was playing 17 minutes a night. Gone. Done for the season.
Yeah.
It's over. They're going to get blown out of the water.
Louis
their OHL coach won't help.
Louis Eriksson revenge tour, man. It's happening. TBD.
Wouldn't that be great if they beat the Nucks? Wouldn't that be so funny?
Yeah.
Louis Eriksson scores a hat trick too.
Well, when does Louis Eriksson return home to the Canucks?
I have no idea.
Probably not too long.
December 19th. So mark that in your calendars because that'll be a good one.
There you go. My timetable is true. They will not beat them until they're back into December.
No,
I'm calling it right now that the first one's going to be against Chicago.
That is a bold take.
I mean, Kane and Tays lit it up a couple of games ago, man. If they're back on form.
I mean, they lit it up, but Chicago's goaltending is pretty bad. And
it's only because they just got no one in front.
Literally, that's the only reason Chicago, or I guess Arizona, has a chance. They need to face a team that has poor defense. Chicago's the only team I can see that has poor defense. Just the way it is.
All I can say is shame on the Arizona Coyotes, you poverty franchise.
And okay, so I want to transition as you as the expert, Austin, a question here. So we all expected Buffalo Sabres to be in the exact same situation. We looked at their roster. You said it yourself. This was not an NHL roster. We have screen caps. You saying it. They're supposed to be terrible. So what's going on this season with them? With
the Buffalo Sabres?
Yeah.
They got the team in for a team meeting, and they played those screen caps, and it really woke them up. This is the difference is the Buffalo Sabres actually have talent on the roster. Victor Olofsson's a great player. Jeff Skinner is, he's not as good as his contract, that's for sure, but he's not a bad player.
How's he been playing this year?
Pretty good, actually. A lot better. Yeah. So they brought in Don Granato, who's a really good coach that resonates with the team. And, with everyone, there's all this outside noise, and the team's just kind of, it's a bunch of young guys who want to play for each other. There's all these things coming out, like Victor Olofsson and Rasmus Asplund. They're, best friends from Sweden and all that. And they just want to, go out, win some games. And the way they're playing is so high offense that they're just getting these scoring chances that people aren't expecting. It's definitely coming back down to earth. They've already lost to the Kings.
Yeah, we've seen this
and
before,
the Sharks.
Where they start hot.
Yeah. But the difference is this time is in those years it was a team came out overperformed and they fizzled out. This one it's a bunch of young guys who are trying their hardest. The talent might not be there, but they're winning games, and that's all that matters. So I think they're going to win more, like going forward than all those years that they had those big starts. Like I don't think we're going to be a bottom 5 team.
You think
We're definitely not going to
make they win
playoffs.
at Tim Hortons Field this winter?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
There's no way Toronto wins that game.
Dude, Matthew Tkachuk lives for those moments. He's going to be great in that game. Like, I have no... And that's the thing. Like, you also got to keep in mind, Buffalo's playing with injuries. We lost Casey Middlestat, who was fire at the end of last year. We lost Yoki Haru, who's our number one right-handed defenseman. And Olofsson just got hurt. So we're also battling through injuries, and we're still winning. When those guys come back, and we get whatever we get in this Eichel trade, either Matthew Tkachuk or Shea Theodore, like, this team's going to be a wagon to play against for a bit. And it's a great transition year.
So, is the rebuild over? Is that it? It's done?
No.
Yeah, we look to the present?
No, I think the rebuild was more in the office. Sabres just made 2 huge signings for analytics guys. But they're still a couple years out. But we got, like, our talent right now is insane in the AHL. We have Jack Quinn, who's only 20 years old, and he leads the AHL in scoring. JJ Peterka is doing great too. So all our young guys are producing. Owen Power, the first overall pick. I want to say this year we give a good fight. We look better than people expect. Get a good draft pick. And then next year might be, if you guys remember that year Toronto squeaked in the playoffs when they had all their young guys. Like last game squeaked in. It'll be something like that. And then we can see this core develop more. Because these young guys still got a ways to go, like Cousins need to develop and all that. But I'm very optimistic with the future. It feels like everyone for once is on the right page, you know, from GM to the analytics department to the coach. And we're making good trades finally. And again, you know, whatever we get for Eichel is really going to speed up this rebuild, especially with some of the reports that we saw today. Like Tkachuk and a bunch of prospects and players, that will add to this team immensely.
Breaking news. Oh, I'm kidding.
I've been checking this whole time. It's gone quiet. It's too quiet. Probably because it's like 1 a.m. in Buffalo right
Kevin
now.
Weeks, man, he's dogging the boys. He pulled a quick one.
He definitely got everyone a little bit excited, but you know, if Buffalo pulls off a trade like that where they get Matthew Tkachuk, that speeds up the rebuild because then you have a core of Tkachuk, Dylan Cousins, Dahlin, Owen Power, right? Like that's a solid group right there.
I'm sorry. I just saw something, a potential trade mentioned by, who is it, Brian Lawtons on NHL Network. He drafted up these 2 potential trades for the Vegas Golden Knights and the Sabres. And this is trades he believes apparently will happen to get the Jack Eichel trade. So from Vegas, you guys would get Shea Theodore, Peyton Krebs, Daniil Chayka, a first and a second round. And then from Calgary, he believes it'll be Sean Monahan, Zari, and Poirier, and then a first and second round. He thinks those 2 are equal.
No, yeah, if that's on the table, we take the Vegas one and we run.
Well, no
Shea
shit.
Theodore is better than all the guys in that Calgary one combined.
Well, yeah. Shea Theodore's an amazing defenseman. He's only 26 years old.
Yeah, and to build off James's point, you know, when he asked if the rebuild's over, the Sabres, how they're doing the rebuild is we're getting those picks, right? We're gonna have at least 3 first-round picks in this year's draft, you know, from the Reinhart trade and the eventual Eichel one. But we still have these young, good players who are playing. There's a future and the more are coming, right? You need to supplement the young guys you already have. You can't just throw shit at the wall and hope it sticks. So if we're able to get a Krebs, if we're able to get a Tkachuk, I think the Sabres are going to be in mighty fine shape to build that strong winning team. But it just comes down to when the Eichel trade happens, what we get back, and you know, building the core around those guys. And I'm very excited for the future.
Hi, sorry, you caught us on the intermission. Just wanted to talk to you guys about the Movember campaign that we're participating in this year. So if you aren't familiar with Movember, every member of the Doghouse team will grow a mustache and will grow some nice facial hair because whatever you grow will help save a bro. So make sure you check out our team and donate below. All the proceeds will go towards helping fund men's health organizations. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the episode.
Alrighty, boys, to wrap this up on the bad teams, bad starts, bad boys, bad dogs. We're going to pick one team that we think might actually get a bit better, narrowly escaping the doghouse. We're going to pick a team that we believe is going to get into the doghouse, get worse than they already are. And if there's someone in the league, someone that maybe no one's noticing that you want to give the dog a bone to, feel free to do that as well. And we're going to start with you, Jimbo.
All right, I'll kick things off. I think I'll take an easy one for a team that's going to get better. But I'm not going to take the easy one for the team that's going to stay bad. So I'm going to say I think Vegas inevitably, with all their might and power, will end up back at the top where they belong. I think it's just a matter of time. I think it's still pretty early days for them. They got some, as we talked about, there's some really big pieces missing, and once they get Stone back, they get Carlson back, I think this is going to be a completely revitalized team, and they'll make their way back up to the top. So I fully expect that. A team that I think will stay bad, I'm going to go with Montreal Canadiens. For a lot of the reasons we talked about before, I think, the two big pieces, obviously Price is just coming back, but Shea Weber out, big leadership miss there. I just look at the roster and I think for the same reason, I think they just got caught up too much in the hype of maybe they undeservedly made it to the Stanley Cup Finals last season. And I think they've got caught up in that hype and they just won't be able to live up to it. So I think that's really going to drag them down for the rest of the season. Even though I think Price is a great goalie, I think he'll bring them up a little bit, but not enough to bring them up where the fans expect them to be. And so on that note, I'm going to give a bone to Jake Allen because I think he has been one of the only shining lights. I think there has been a lot of criticism through the whole team in Montreal, but I think it's pretty clear that Jake Allen is really trying his best to hold his own and stand on his head, and it's just not been enough. But I think he has been one of the very few shining lights because there's just been such a huge underperformance, I think, throughout the entire roster, and I think he's just a player that's tried his best to fill that gap by missing Price, and which you can't do. Price is a world caliber goalie, and Allen is quite good too, but I think he's deserving of being given a bone, I think, on such a poor situation, especially in a city like Montreal that has, the fans expect so much after. It's just a tough hockey town, so I feel bad for him. So I'll pass it off to Connor, who you got.
Oh, man, such a tough one. I think I'll start off with a team I think it's going to get better. And that team is going to be the Chicago Blackhawks. It's a controversial take, but now that Stan Bowman's out as GM, and who knows what else is going to come out and come to this light, there's really nowhere else to go but up for the Blackhawks organization. Although I do want them to kind of have to suffer through this, and I do want to see a little bit more of, what has occurred in that locker room and which players should be held accountable for the Kyle Beach situation, just like Joe Quenneville was held accountable. I think at the same time, it's only up for here, and that Fleury and Seth Jones will see comebacks going forward. For a team I think that's going to get worse, I'm actually going to go with Seattle. I think that their goaltending, even though they'll go into a tandem, Dave Haxtell's not a good coach. Their defensive system is non-existent, realistically. They've got such a strong defensive team, they got an offensive-minded coach, and then their offense is just piss poor, to be honest. Brandon Tanev's been playing great. I like the players, don't get me wrong, but it's not a strong enough offense. And with Vegas turning it probably around as well, they're in for a really, really, really rough ride. Who I'd give a dog a bone to, I'm going to actually give out two bones here. So the first bone I'm going to give out to is Shane Gostisbehere on the Arizona Coyotes. 5 points for the Arizona Coyotes. He's been playing pretty decent. He's playing on a really, really bad team, especially after getting traded from Philadelphia. You can't really expect much more from the guy, and honestly, I hope he continues to have a good year, because 5 points in 10 games is not bad for a defenseman. And then another guy I'll give a bone to is Andrew Mangiapane of the Calgary Flames. a guy who's playing fourth line minutes with Brett Ritchie and is putting up that many goals, you gotta give a guy credit. The guy is playing the third least amount of minutes of all Flames forwards, and he's still putting up that many points. I gotta give a bone to a guy who puts in the work. Austin, who do you have?
You lost me on that one.
What's wrong with
Definitely
the
a
bread
team.
man? What's
Huh?
Connor's a big bread man guy.
yeah?
Yeah, I know.
Love the bread.
He's going to be the best winger once Kachuk's traded. Team that I see getting better, a lot of guys have the opportunity to. I think it's going to be Seattle. I think that team's just too good not to get better. I think they'll have a moment on the road trip where they bond or something, and they'll break out and they'll finally be good again. Team that can only get worse. You guys were very courageous in looking at, different teams, but I am not so courageous. I'm going to stomp on the dead body. The Arizona Coyotes will
Yeah,
not win a
I figured
game
I'd leave
until
that one for
December.
you.
There's no chance. This team sucks. They might tie the worst ever NHL record, and I would love to see it. It'd be amazing, especially when they don't win the lottery. So, poverty franchise, poverty year. They're just going to be worse than ever, and that's who's going to be in my doghouse. But a franchise I want to give, or a player to give a dog a bone to, one of the best players this year. They might change the award for his name. Craig Vezina Anderson. He's just been so good. Comes out of retirement from the top rope to carry the Buffalo Sabres. And, just for how bad we talked about Buffalo this summer, to sell Craig Anderson on, hey, I know you're 40 years old, and the last 40-year-old goalie in the past 5 years was David Ayers, and we want you to strap yourselves to the post and just get lit up. And he took that on the chin, and he turned this franchise around. Hero. Absolute hero. Deserves some kind of award this year. I don't know if it's going to be Hart, Vezina, Bill Masterton, but something to recommend this man for his bravery. And I think on that note, we'll finish up, boys.
Yeah, I think so. Good podcast, boys.
Yeah, great episode. We'll be wrapping on up, and then we'll hopefully see which teams don't get better, and we'll throw them in the doghouse. Have a wonderful night, everybody.